It's a slower pace of life. There isn't any rush. That rubs some people the wrong way, but it's like Hawaii, only a lot more reasonably priced. Don't mistake my praise of the medical system that they take care of you no matter what. There's people that they see a couple of vlogs, man, that's the place for me. They sell everything in their whole life and they come here. Don't expect people to act the same here as they do back home. It's not the States, baby.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Can you please introduce yourself for the audience?
My name is Mike Newton. I'm moved here from Las Vegas, Nevada in 2021. Uh, been here since then. Colid City, love it. Got married in 1982. Live here with my asawa, and it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to helping out with answering questions.
And where did you originally meet your wife, Mike?
Back in 1980, I was in the Air Force, and I got assigned to Clark Air Base in the Philippines, which is north of Manila. In my running around downtown there, uh, lived a lot off the local market down there. Enjoyed going down to the sari stores. Enjoyed going to the local grocery stores. I really enjoyed the local atmosphere. Everywhere I've been, I've enjoyed getting out in the local atmosphere of it. And she was a clerk at one of the stores I went to all the time. And asked her out. We went to a pizza place. Pizza place, actually, the company is still there. They've changed locations. But the original pizza place that first took her on a date in 1980 is still there. Anyway, we got to know each other a little better, and ultimately asked her to marry. The rest is history.
That's beautiful that you found your special someone so early on. Truly a blessing. So I want to ask you, in some ways, does the Philippines remind you of America back in the day, whatever back in the day would be considered to you?
Um, well, I guess it would depend on what you're doing. Shopping wise, we're in a very beautiful modern as any mall in the U.S. would be. So that's the same. But as far as if you went back to the 60s, what I think is kind of cool about the Philippines is if you get into the local market and you make friends with local Filipinos. And like, I like old cars. And if you have something old that you're working on and you got a friend who knows somebody, and you can go into a workshop down in the back street in the Philippines, and they'll take an alternator or a starter or something that would be a throwaway in our society in the U.S., but they'll completely disassemble the thing and rebuild it, with the crudest of tools. So they don't have fancy wrenches, they don't have fancy presses. It's a hammer and a drift, maybe a pliers, maybe a screwdriver. Just very minimal tools, but they do stuff by hand. So everything is hand built, hand assembled, hand crafted. And I really dig that. I think that's something that America is missing. And you can still find it, but when you find it in the U.S., it ends up being some tourist trap somewhere, and the guy that's doing it he's getting paid to do it by the tourist company, and it's not authentic. But here, you get into the back streets and find the workshops. You get a t-shirt shop, a seamstress, anything like that, shoe repair, and it's authentic, and they very little money. I I pay them U.S. rates, and my wife gets mad at me because I give them too much money. But it's like, I feel bad if I don't. And they're doing a great job.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. They're going to make good use out of something that ordinarily people wouldn't think that would be useful.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, Mike, what's something that happened here in the Philippines that would never happen back home in America?
Well, actually, the only thing that really comes to mind that I've experienced, and it has to do with another expat, actually. And I've lost contact with the guy. I don't know where he's at now. But there's a young man that started a dive shop in Dumaguete, which is on the other side of the island from us. And he was very successful. Really, he settled down here. He'd been diving all his life. He came here and he found himself. He loves the Philippines. He loves diving here. And what I thought was pretty amazing, and I don't think you'd ever see it in the U.S., is this guy. Uh, Basically, he had a hobby, and he was not making a great living. He's surviving on it, but he loves it. But he finds the time, and he has the capability that he actually takes local Filipino kids once they're out of high school, and he does every quarter. I think it's when I knew him, every 3 months he's a certified trainer instructor for diving all the way up to commercial level diving, and he has a competition kind of a thing, and he picks 4 kids a year. At the time it was 4 kids a year, once a quarter, and he puts them through his course all the way through to where they can be a commercial diver, free of charge, totally free of charge. Provides all the equipment, all the oxygen, all the classroom time, everything they need, all the taxes and fees, permit fees and all that stuff. And I don't think you ever see that in the States.
Yeah, America is more like a business to me than a country at this point. So I agree. You're
Yeah,
never going to see someone going out of their way for
he
the
was
youth
giving them
like that.
opportunity. That's what he was doing.
That's great. Have you had any unexpected moments that have stuck out to you since you've been here in the Philippines?
Well, I was the first time that I came back in 2008 when we came back for a wedding, and I was here for it just happened to be the same time frame that they in that time they had Typhoon Frank came through, and it was pretty deadly, devastating and deadly for Negros Occidental, the province we're in here, and something I'd never heard of before, and it really struck me as odd, but at the same time it makes sense. One of the towns that you drive through to get up to our province up in Sagay, up in the township up there, whatever you call it. I forget the name of the little town, but it's a fishing town. And nobody expected that typhoon to be as bad as it was. So all of the fishermen were out fishing when the typhoon that hit the worst, and it wiped them out. It basically the entire male population that is the bread and butter for that town got killed out on the typhoon, and that was tragic enough, and that was horrendous. But what struck me as odd was their belief that it was going to impact the market. I don't know how long it did impact the market, but they were terrified how it would impact their fish market because they have this thing where a superstition thing, and it's probably based on real world, but they won't sell the fish from that area because they feel like the fish may have been feeding on the people that passed away out on the water. So it really struck me as how, you think about it, it's tragic enough that all these lives were lost. But now, even though they don't have the fish income coming into the town, what little they had left that they could scavenge together was basically worthless because the whole thing with we can't eat that fish anymore, you know. And that's has stuck in my brain from when that happened.
I want to ask you, Mike, I know you've been coming to the Philippines with your wife since 1982. How have you seen the Philippines change since then?
It's become a lot more westernized, a lot more crowded in the cities. I think it used to be, and it's the same way that, you look at U.S. history, it's the same kind of thing that happened there was, we used to be a farming society, a countryside society. People fended for themselves in the country. They raised their own food, had their own meat, look after themselves. They went into town when they needed gasoline or diesel or something that they couldn't get for themselves. And that's the way the Philippines really was the first time I came here, 82. It seemed the Philippines was more like that. The big towns were here. Manila was there. I was on Luzon, which is where Manila is, which is where Clark Air Base was. Um, but Luzon and Manila were the main island, the main city, and you had cities all up and down Luzon, but everybody would go to Manila to do any kind of shopping because Manila was the epicenter of of the Philippines. But now you go, Bacolod. I believe Bacolod is the third, if not the second largest city now in the Philippines. We got several beautiful malls here now, doing high rises all over the place. Traffic is horrendous. When I was here before, 82, even 2008, when I was here in 2008, you could catch a Jeep, and you'd take a Jeep everywhere. Or you'd catch a bus or you'd catch a trike, and you'd get around anywhere pretty fast. But now more and more and more people are becoming westernized and having their own car. And just like in the U.S., you know, predominantly you see cars and trucks with one person in it, you know. And it's a crying shame, but that's the power of the automobile. But that's the biggest change, I think.
Do you think you feel happier living here in the Philippines?
Definitely. I like it here so much better because it's so laid back. I feel like they look out for one another better. It's a slower pace of life. There isn't any rush. that rubs some people the wrong way. That's people that come here. I think that one of the biggest mistakes people make when they say I want to live in the Philippines is they expect it to be like America, where you can go into Ace Hardware and ask the guy, hey, I need a whatchamacallit to fix this what's it. And Ace Hardware is not like that here. If you need a nuts and bolt for something, whatever, say, hey, where's your nuts and bolts? And they'll point you to where they are, but they're not going to be able to help you find it because they don't have that kind of a knowledge base in their own commerce. It's more relaxed. It's a more relaxed attitude for everything. I don't know. It's like Hawaii. I don't know if you've ever been to Hawaii, but it's like Hawaii, only a lot more reasonably priced.
Nice. Have you traveled around the Philippines at all?
We've been to Luzon. I've been as far south as Batangas. We've gone up to Baguio a couple of times. Baguio is where I actually proposed to my wife. So we've been up there all around Pampanga, of course. That's where Clark Air Base was. We've been to Palawan. It's a beach resort. We've been to Boracay. We might be going to Boracay again before we leave. Been to Manila several times. Really like Manila. Been to Cebu. Been to Iloilo. Iloilo is kind of our go-to escape because you get on the ferry here. Ride the ferry for 45 minutes, and it's a totally different town. It's a cleaner town. It's there. I don't know if their government standards are different or what, but you can really tell night and day between here and Iloilo. As far as getting around and stuff. But yeah, we've traveled some, but I'm happy to stay here, especially since we moved from that. We had a house that we sold, and we moved here now. We just live right across the street from this mall. So if we get an itch, we can wander around the mall. It's easy to catch. It's a transportation hub right over here. Catch your transportation to go anywhere in town we want to go. Like a couple of your previous interviewees have said, they have Grab here now. Grab is fantastic. It's clean, it's reliable, it's honest. They're as safe a driver as any other driver in this town. Safer than I am when I was driving in this town. No, it's a lot better than the U.S. I would have to say.
As far as amenities go here, for example, healthcare, are you able to get the same quality of care that you think you would be able to receive in America?
I would have to do absolutely yes. I think that's the biggest misnomer, or I think is that the right way to say it? The biggest mistake that people think with the Philippines. Yeah, in some ways it's a third world country, but they got top notch medical here. I was diagnosed with a couple different cancers here. I had kidney cancer. I had a kidney removed here at the hospital, local hospital here in Bacolod. No complaints whatsoever. Had a super urologist, a super, what do you call, oncologist, the cancer guy. I have a top-notch cancer center here. No regrets whatsoever. No problems whatsoever. Cost is very low. I'm fortunate. I'm retired military, so I do have insurance coverage. It's a little more complicated here than getting your coverage in the States because in the States, you go to the hospitals and whatnot, they pretty much take care of all of your paperwork, just like any kind of insurance paperwork. But here, when you're using any of the military type coverage, man, you got to do all that paperwork yourself, and it's a bear. But everything was covered. It's just a matter of doing the right paperwork. Crossing your T's and dotting your I's. The only thing I don't have any, I've got experience with the ERs, top-notch service in the ERs. The only thing I would have any question about is, and it's only because I've never used them, I don't know how their ambulance services are. I've heard it both ways. I've heard that they take good care of you. I've also heard that all they are is basically a bus service with a red light on top. That they don't even touch you in the ambulance. It's just basically a quicker transport than if you get there on your own. But I don't have any experience with that myself. But otherwise, it's great.
So I think people are going to want to know about this. You were able to fill out some VA healthcare paperwork, and that covered you
Yeah,
for your.
that's correct. Yeah, actually, that's a good point, and it's probably valuable for if any of your military guy or military expats are watching. And in fact, one of your previous guys you interviewed, Gunny's Burger Place, where the American Legion has a post. Good source of info there. But if you are a veteran and you're qualified for TRICARE, here in Bacolod, there are TRICARE providers listed on the TRICARE website, but you can go outside that. And even if you use the providers that are listed, you still have to do all the paperwork yourself. And you have to pay cash up front for everything. There's no, anybody that's been here knows if you go to the hospital, sure, they'll bring you into the ER, but they're not going to do much more than keep you alive unless you can show that you're going to be able to pay for the care. You know, don't mistake my praise of the medical system that they take care of you no matter what, which is kind of the way they are in the States. It's not like that here. If you they'll do what it takes to keep you alive, but they want to make sure that you're going to be able to reimburse them for it. But anyway, back to the VA stuff. TRICARE is separate from the VA. That's not a VA program at all. That's just normal retiree medical care. If you are on a VA, you have a VA disability. Depending on what the VA disability is, as with all VA, you are only covered by the VA for that particular disability. For example, you get VA for a bad leg. So if you have problems with your leg, you go to a hospital here, the paperwork that you would do for your VA disability claim, it's called FMP, Foreign Medical Program. That's the way the VA handles VA compensation over here for medical work. If it's your other leg and it's not VA related and you're covered under Champus TRICARE, then that's a TRICARE claim, which is totally different. So your VA claim for a VA leg would be paid for 100%. Ideally, if you got all the right paperwork, will be covered 100%, but you have to pay up front. It's all upfront pay. But if your TRICARE leg, they only pay whatever the percentage is now that TRICARE pays. I don't know if it's 70% or what it is now, but you still got to pay that all up front. And as a add-on to that, for older guys that are getting into Medicare, if you're going to plan on using your TRICARE over here, even though there's no Medicare over here, you still have to pay for your Medicare Part B in the States, even though you're never going to use it because you can't use it over here. But you can't have TRICARE over here unless you pay Medicare Part B. So that's my VA soapbox.
I think that was a good golden nugget you dropped there. Would you mind sharing your approximate cost of living per month, Mike?
Well, right now we're renting a condo. Our condo is $30,000 a month. It's fully furnished. We're paying the electric and the water. Haven't received our first bill yet. We just moved in there. I don't anticipate it being very high. Probably be better just go from the house that we had. Well, our house was paid for, so I didn't have any rent. But my water bill there was we were paying $340 a month for water. It never was any higher than that. We lived in a subdivision. It was subdivision supplied water. They had two big water tanks. Our house had a full water filter system, so we were able to drink water out of any tap. So the water was good. I had solar power on the house, so I never had any electric bill. Never paid electric bill. Before the solar got totally hooked up, we were paying around $3,000 a month for electric. Always kept one air conditioner running. In the master bedroom, we kept it cool all the time. That was pretty much my hangout. But yeah, I would say that's actually a very popular question. I would say somebody that comes over here, like an older guy that's older gal that wants to come over here and retire and live, and if they're just even on Social Security only, if they're careful and they don't want to live extravagant, very easily get by on 1,700, 2,000 a month easily. I mean, you see vlogs where guys claim they're living on 500 a month and whatever, and talking dollars. That's you can do it, sure, but you're not going to be very comfortable. You're not going to enjoy life. You could you could be here, live a good life, go out to eat once in a while, turn your air conditioner on once in a while for a couple thousand a month. I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for 500 a month, you're really going to be living like a hard-working local, and I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying God bless them because they really do work so hard. I want to ask Mike, do you have any advice for foreigners thinking about moving to the Philippines? What's the best advice you would give them?
I would say it would depend on how often they've been here, how much they know about the Philippines. There's people that they see a couple vlogs, man, that's the place for me. They sell everything in their whole life and they come here and they expect it to be like the vlogs, and it's not. Everybody has their own experience. I think the best advice I would give is if you think this place is for you, put your stuff in storage, come here for minimum 3 months and bounce around a little bit. If you want to just come to Bacolod and stay in one spot, that's fine. You can still bounce off to Iloilo or go across island to Dumaguete or whatever. But I would spend at least 3 months in country. And the other mistake I see people and people that have been here for several years is that This is not America, or this is not England, this is not Australia. Don't expect people to act the same here as they do back home. You know, if you go into, I mean, I can give you an example. You go into a lighting store here, like when we were selecting lights for our house. Beautiful selection of lights, big, beautiful store, 2 stories, all kind of lights and fans, and you name it. And you can ask them specific questions, and they can find somebody that has the answers. But when you go back for service or you try to return something, it's not the States, baby. You buy something here, you better make sure you're happy with it before you walk out the door. Because 90% of the time there's no return. You know, you go into any of the stores, even in the modern malls, you go to Ace Hardware or True Value Hardware, and you buy a pack of light bulbs, they actually have testing stations where they'll test and make sure all the light bulbs work before you leave the store. So you can't come back and say, hey, these didn't work. Anything electrical, a fan, radio, electric oven, they'll plug it in and make sure it works before it leaves the store. And you know, you don't see that in the States because everybody has a liberal return policy, you know. I think that's the 2 biggest mistakes. You know, be here temporary so you can bail out if you want to bail out. Be here temporary first, and don't expect it to be like home because it's not. You know, it's not.
That's about all I got, Mike. Is there anything else that you like to add based on your years of experience that you've had here in the Philippines?
I would say if you do pull the trigger and you come over here, don't be afraid to explore. You know, if you're even if you're not a swimmer, you can go to the beach and have a blast, and not set foot in the water. You know, you can go to Manila and explore the town from the comfort of the back seat of a Grab, and you know you can get into a Grab, tell the Grab driver where you want to go, and they'll punch it in, and then you pay, and it's cheap. Traveling around the country is cheap. If you're going to fly Philippine Airlines, fly Comfort Plus or Comfort Premium. It's a lot better than just the straight on economy. Just because you get a little bit wider. Well, I'm a wide guy, so you get a little bit wider seat. But it's also nice because a lot of the flights out of Manila, you end up being delayed in Manila waiting for your flights, and they have a nice lounge there that you can sit and have some coffee and have some snacks. Because Manila Airport is packed. It's a zoo. It's a great airport. I find it to be very efficient, but it's really nice to get out of the crowd and go back into that lounge and just kick back, you know. So,
That's
but yeah,
great, Mike. I enjoyed chopping it up with you for this interview. So, you guys, if
my
you
pleasure.
enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, share it, and subscribe for me. Thanks, guys.
Excellent.